G'day there, this is Dan Marks.
And Kristy Marks.
And we're a local family in Canberra that wanted to start sharing with you a little bit about our life and how we manage the hard times, how we have fun, how we laugh, and how we live in the world today with our family, with work, with all the financial pressures that many of us experience as bringing up a family in the 21st century. So today is a little bit about us, sharing a little bit about who we are and some of the challenges that we have, how we try and manage those and how we try and meet those expectations that are out there. And I guess sharing a little bit about us and what we do.
One thing that I want to talk about today, Dan, is the common misconceptions about our family. We have 4 kids, and lots of people think we're insane because we have a lot of children. For this day and age, it seems like a lot of kids. And I don't know about you, but quite often people ask me questions. Oh, you must be busy. Oh, your life must be crazy. Oh, your food bill must be so big. Blah blah blah. And I'm just wondering whether you feel the same way, or whether you've had that kind of interaction with people, or is it only a female thing?
No, I think it's 2 things. The first thing I always say is I love it, and I really do love it. And I think that goes back to our families. You know, we had 4 kids in our family. We didn't have lots of money, but we were so happy and we had such a great time. So for me, you know, I'm so happy that I'm able to, you know, attempt to try and do what our parents did, and same as you with your parents. At the same time, it is really hard. You know, it is really, really hard. I think, you know, just take a weekend where we have to go to sport and we don't get to see our kids play sport every week because we divide between kids to be able to you know, meet everything. And we're in Canberra where it's much easier. If you're in Sydney or Melbourne or many other cities around the world, you just can't do that. So, you know, I think it is really, really hard. It's also really hard when they each have needs and they each want you. And, you know, a lot of their friends and a lot of our other families don't have as many kids, so they get a different experience. So that's also hard, but you know, the benefits are incredible, and so we're so lucky to have so many of those benefits. You know, to have in holidays where the kids can play with each other, and they're really happy to do that day in day out. Whereas kids of smaller families sometimes won't be because they'll get bored. Whereas we don't have that challenge. And you know, I think the story I always think about is when we get around the table and we're either at your family's house or my family's house. It's such a joy because there's so many of us. There's so many people to talk to. There's so many things to catch up on. We're just so lucky to have such a large representation of our family together and be able to share and enjoy with each other. So, yeah, look, I think it is really hard, but at the same time, it's satisfying. But what do you think?
I love it. I have to tell people that's the reason we chose to have 4 kids, because you had 3 siblings. I had 3 siblings. My life growing up was awesome. You know, there was always someone else to play with. If you had a fight with one sibling, there's always somebody else to play with. And I see that with our children. And I love how our childhood is now becoming our parenthood. So, you know, we're parenting 4 kids just like our parents did. And you see it from a different perspective, obviously. But also, you mentioned sitting around the table. Same here in our family. There's 6 of us that sit around the table, and if one of those people is gone, like if you're not here, or if one of the kids is having a sleepover or isn't here for some other reason, it changes the dynamic ridiculously, doesn't it? It's so quiet. And well, I often say to you, I couldn't stand having less children than this, because we're used to the noise. I mean, as you said, when we get together with our family, it's intense.
Yeah.
Like with our extended family, it is really intense. You know, there's 19 from my family and there's 17 from your family. Is that right? And it's really crazy, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think we chose this life, and it is hard, but the benefits far outweigh the hard parts, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's way better. And even, you know, having more kids at our house, lots of people say to me, oh, you don't want any more kids at your house if I say come over for a play. But I prefer to have 8 kids for each child to have one friend over and have 8 kids, 10 kids, 12 kids in our house, because that's the joy. That's the joy of living. That's the joy of family, and I love it. And I could cook for kids all day if they're all going to be at my house. I much prefer them being at our place rather than on the streets.
Absolutely. And I think, if you look back at our history of we moved from Sydney to Canberra, and, one of the biggest drivers without a doubt was the fact that we had lots of cousins here that our kids could play with and be around all the time, which, is one of the most happiest things that you can see when it works well. It's really an absolute pleasure. And so we wanted to make sure our children had the opportunity to be able to do that. I want to step back, and dive into one thing you were just talking about before. How do you manage to sit down and have dinner with the family every night?
Well, our dinner times have changed since we had kids. We always made a really big effort to eat as a family. I know that lots of families do things differently, and as our family, like as our kids grow up, it's going to change. But I think it's really important to sit down as a family at the end of the night. And you have worked really hard, Dan, in terms of getting home for dinner, or setting the kids' expectations. Okay, I'm not going to be home for dinner, but I'll give you a kiss goodnight when I get home, or I'll see you in bed to put you to bed, that kind of thing. At the moment, it's pretty hectic at night because we've got so much training. So that the big boys do swimming twice a week, and then all 3 boys have footy training twice a week, and then we have footy all day Saturday. But still, that final thing we do at the end of every day is sit down for a family meal, and that's so important. I think for both of us is to have that final connection, and that I can't say it's a relaxing atmosphere at dinner time, but it's fun. We all talk, we all gather around the table, and that's where we're actually sitting at the dining table right now, recording this. I think the dining table, as well as the kitchen, is the heart of the home, and I definitely enjoy our family meals. And I know it's going to get harder as the kids grow up and have later trainings and jobs to go to, etc. But I really want that to be maintained, even if we know we're all going out, or the kids aren't going to be there. Just have one meal per day, or even at one meal, couple of meals per week, where we all sit down at the same time.
I think it's one of the key ways that we instill the values and the ways that we want our kids to interact with each other, and how we want to interact as adults as well. They're able to see that day in, day out. We talk a lot about manners at the table. We talk a lot about respect. We talk a lot about rules. We all sit down, but we don't start eating until everyone's together. Now, they're just our ways that we like to instill respect, and everyone's different. But for us, that's really important. The biggest thing with having 4 kids is everyone wants to talk always. And that happens a lot, particularly with some vocal people in our family. And so, taking turns in talking, asking questions, it's such a great way day in, day out to instill those behaviors and those expectations that we have on our family, and the way that we want to interact, and the values that we want to impart on our kids. So for me, it's such a crucial part. And without a doubt, it's the most stressful part of my day, is trying to get home to have dinner. I think about all the work challenges and all the pressures that we have, and getting to sport and all those things. They're stressful, but without a doubt, the most stressful thing for me is trying to get home at the right time so I can sit down with everyone and be present and ready to have dinner. And so, but it's an investment. I think it's valuable. I think it's the way that we get to connect with our family. And I don't see them in the mornings. So for me, being able to be there at night and do that is the most important part of my day. And yes, it causes a huge amount of stress. Yes, I may often cut corners and speed and do things like that to be able to get there. But it's so crucial for us, and bringing up our family the way that we want.
Yeah. And going back to those values that we hold, I think family being one of them, but also just life skills. You were just talking about all the things that are taught around the dinner table that we don't even think about. The communication, how to actually eat a meal with a knife and fork, being respectful, that kind of thing, and everybody getting a turn. It's all those life skills that everybody needs, that quite often are missed if you don't get to sit around the dinner table at night with your family. It is a very core value of our family, isn't it?
Let's talk a little bit about what else stresses you. I just talked a little bit about what stressed me, which was, trying to get home and be present and be a good father, and be a good husband. What are some of the things that really stress you out and bring the pressure points up?
How long you got? No, I've got a really good example of that. Just this morning, getting out of the house in time to get to school. It was quite a difficult one this morning. I almost left without our eldest child because he was not ready. That is a major stress point for me, getting out the door in the morning and having everything ready. So I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm really organized. And I think I have to be, because of our chaotic lives. But I've always been organized. Even when we first met, even when it was just me, I was organizing. I do like a bit of organization. So things that help me getting out of the house in the morning, is getting up way earlier than the kids. And recently we moved house and I've kind of got out of my routine. And so I need to get back into that routine. So I, get up and there's a process that I go through. And so I am 100% ready when those kids walk out of their bedroom doors and say, Mum, I'm hungry, or Mum, can I have breakfast? So I'm 100% ready to start the day. So I'm fully dressed. I've done a little bit of exercise. I've done my meditation. The washing's on the line. The dishwasher's unpacked. Lunch boxes are ready to go. And I know that that's actually a lot of people ask me about that. Lunch boxes. How do you do lunch boxes? How do you organise the mornings? And I always say getting up that little bit earlier, which means going to bed earlier, which is so important. I think we're going to do a whole nother podcast on health and well-being habits.
Definitely.
Because I think that's a really, really big thing. But in terms of being prepared in the morning, you can be as prepared as you want to, but if someone digs their heels in, and quite often there's two members of our family who dig their heels in quite a bit, which is fine, but it's being ready to tackle those and ready to manage that. I wasn't expecting morning. That was quite a big dig in, but that's a really big stress for me.
I think coming back to that, for kids, you always got a 25% chance that something will go wrong, don't you, as a minimum? And you said 50%, which is probably more our strike rate, to be honest. I'm just going to segue for a second and just give people an understanding of how organised you are. So I've never even heard of this before, but at uni you would submit your assignments 2 to 3 days prior to them being due. Crazy. You have a list for everything. And look, it's one of the reasons I love you without a doubt, is that I am the absolute opposite of that and I'm all over the place. And thank God I have you, because you're the only one who can somewhat organise me and make me feel like we're in control of things. Segue over there. So in terms of managing that stress, like, give people some insight. Like, so you talked a little bit about lunch boxes and getting that organised. What are the other things that you do to get on top of the challenges that you know that are going to be thrown your way as you start your day?
Oh gosh, it's a hard one. Well, I'd prepare lunch for the kids prior to the evening prior, or even on the weekends. I also try and have everything ready to go. So we have what I like to call the launch pad, which is where we have our school bags, our hats, and I also try to get them organised prior to. So everything, when we get in the house at the end of the day, lunch boxes have to go in the sink. Bags have to go back in the launch pad. I'll call it the launch pad, it's just the bookcase. And everything needs to be in the right spot. So everything has a spot in our house. You might know it. Sometimes I don't know it. That wasn't a dig. That was just because everything was all over the place at the moment. But yeah, just preparing as much as I can for things that I know are going to happen. So they're always going to be hungry. So I always get the breakfast out. Everything's already ready to go. Lunches are already packed, so I don't have to worry about that. And then it'll make it easier to manage the things that come out of left field.
Yep.
The tantrum, I don't want to put my shoes on, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, oh, my life's so hard, these kinds of things. And then I can actually, and I know that, our second boy is always amazing. He just gets up, gets ready, no problems. And then, our youngest is quite good as well, but she's still little, she's only 6. So she still needs help doing her hair, and sometimes have help putting her shoes on, and, being able to know that they're coming and having a time to do those things helps me mentally. But then I'm still absolutely frantic trying to get out the door to get them to school on time. So I don't know. My planning doesn't always work.
I think there's a few other things that stand out to me as well.
Okay.
You talked about the right sleep and waking up early. You also you also do yoga in the morning, or you try and have some time and it's early normally. I know it's a real pain point to be able to do that, but it's almost your Zen time where you're able to just set yourself up for the day and get yourself mentally ready, so that when the kids wake up and one of them's unhappy or anything like that, we don't start with yelling and, the anger that sometimes sets off that escalation and that real digging into the heels that you were talking about, which makes it difficult then for everyone to get started. So I think that's also a really big, important step that you take it day in, day out, that really sets you up for success, which is prior to all of the parts of the work that you do with the kids as well.
Yes, that's become a very big focus for me over the past little while. Getting my well-being correct. Like last night, I was already lying in bed reading, like when you got home at 8:30 from tennis. So because I knew that I needed to get up early this morning because I went to a gym class, so I had to get up ultra early. Even earlier than I normally would, so that I could get to the gym class. And then I also find it difficult on Wednesday morning when I go to the gym, and then I have to do all of the things that I have to do in the morning, which is fine, but that's an added extra. But I still want to do that. Despite the stress that it causes me on a Wednesday morning, it's really, really important that I go to that gym class, because it's a gym class that I love, and, body is really, really important in managing your stress and just having a good, well-rounded life. So yes, I do meditate. I do try and do yoga every morning. It's really, really hard to get out of bed, especially in Canberra during winter. I must say that was the last few mornings. It's been quite difficult, and I just haven't done it. But my body is craving it, and I need to do it because that's what I need. And not only my body, but my mind as well.
I think we're very fortunate with a few things. Our school is very close to where we live, so that gives us a huge advantage over lots of people who have to travel. The other huge advantage that you have, without a doubt, is that your work is primarily at home, so that you're able to work around all the commitments of family, which lots of people don't have.
No.
So that is a huge advantage that you have. And then you probably have a big disadvantage, which is your partner's never really around.
That's true.
Throughout the days. And I'd say that as a disadvantage, but also sometimes an advantage. But I think in the mornings it's certainly a more tricky one, because it's 1 on 4.
Definitely.
So that always makes it really challenging. And I think that's one of the things that you're so impressive about, is that organisational skills really comes out and really helps a lot with getting the coordination happening and making sure that things happen on time at the right time, so that they all come to school and get here. Is it always perfect?
No, it's never perfect. It's never, ever, ever perfect. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Why do people think you're perfect, and why do people think you're so in control and you've got it all sorted out?
I think, again, a common misconception is that because I have 4 kids and, when people come to my house, it's tidy. Well, maybe not. It's sometimes tidy. I think they believe that, my life's perfect, or our family's perfect, or it's not. It's messy, it's chaotic, it's screaming, it's yelling, it's tantruming from both adults and children. Maybe not adults, maybe just me. And I think I don't know why people think it. I don't. I just think it's the volume of children. I believe that people don't know how we do it because they don't know if they could do it. It's interesting. It links back to us moving down to Canberra from Sydney. We decided to make that change because we were barely seeing you. We wouldn't see you in the morning, we wouldn't see you in the evening. And our eldest was at preschool, and we thought to ourselves, well, I did, I think we both did, we would never see you ever. You wouldn't be involved in the kids' lives if we stayed in Sydney. And I think moving down to Canberra, although you're not here in the morning and you're very involved in the kids' lives. You can pop over from work to do, school assemblies, to go and see them run at the athletics carnival like you did yesterday. And maybe that's why people think our life's perfect, because, they see us, we're visible because, I work from home, and I have been a stay-at-home mum for a very, very long time. And but we put the effort into that. So I don't think it's about perfect, and I don't think it's about perfection at all. I think it's about the effort that we put into what's important in our lives to be able to grow those areas. So we have worked really, really, really hard on perfecting our craft as parents. I think I have. We don't always get the returns on that, but I think that I've perfected my craft of being a mother. In no way, shape, or form am I saying I'm perfect, but I think I'm quite good at my systems and my processes, so that makes my life easier, which may look easier to the outside world.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I think, the word that was out at me was patience a lot. And I know it's a trait that that I have, and I really try and instill a huge amount, and that's really easy for me, someone who comes and goes lots. But I think patience is one of the things that a lot of people will look at on the outside and say, how does he have that level of patience? And that comes back to a lot of the things you were just talking about before around organization, around looking after yourself and being healthy, and creating that happy environment for yourself, so that when something hits the fan and you start to see tantrums occurring and all the things that do occur day in, day out, they're part of our lives and part of how we live. But when they occur, we're able to put in place quick strategies to be able to address them or be able to ride them out. Probably the latter more than anything. But I think that patience factor is massive. I think the other part that you talked about, which is really important to us, is being around and being there. And I think that's instilled from our parents. Our parents were really busy and had big families just like us. But I know my family, who were teachers, they always had lots of time for us, and were always around and were always there to help us. And I know your parents are the exact same. And that's who we want to be, and that's how we want to be. And so that's probably always front of mind for us. And that visibility piece that you're talking about, how does he get to the sports carnival, or how does he get home for dinner, or how do you get them at school on time, and all of those things. It's a priority for us. I think it's really, really important. So is money important? Yes, it is. Is work important? Yes, it is. Is our important? All of those things are important, but keeping our family together and keeping our family happy, keeping the right behaviors in place in our family is really, really important. So we invest in it, and we spend so much time on it day in, day out, to make sure that it works right for us and our family, and we get the outcomes of that. But certainly there isn't a perfection model that we're working to. I think we're learning every day. I think the friends and family that we're around, they're the best teachers for us. We learn from each and every one of them, and it's not like we take everything. We take little bits from everyone, and to me, that's the most valuable part. I think my brother, my sisters, your family, Kristy, without a doubt, they've been such inspirations for us, and they do such incredible things that we learn so much from. And then our parents, gosh, what great guides. We're so lucky to have all of those people around us that help shape that. And then uncles and aunties, the list goes on, and they're not always perfect. There's so many examples where we think, we wouldn't do that, or that's not how we're going to work. But, and it's not being, disparaging. It's more just saying we're going to do it a little different way. And it's not that it's better, it's just different, but it's the right way for us. And, you know, that for me is something that I'm always looking at is, you know, how can I learn from others to try and be a better father, better husband, you know, a better person in total.
You're great. I think you were just saying about aunties and uncles and our extended family, and I always remember having a discussion with my auntie and uncle in Mudgee one time, and my uncle said to me, because that's where my parents grew up, and we spent a lot of time there as kids in Mudgee, and both sets of my grandparents were there, and I have aunties and uncles that's still there, and I remember saying to my uncle saying to me, "What makes you come home? What makes you want to come back to Mudgee? What makes you want to spend time here?" And I remember saying to him, it's the family. I feel like this is my second home. Even though I did grow up here in Canberra, I feel like Mudgee is my second home because that is where my family was. And I always remember my grandma telling me when she moved house once, and I walked in and I said, "Oh, Grandma, it doesn't feel like home." And she looked around and she says, "Yes, it does. She said, it's because as soon as I get my photos out, that's the first thing I do whenever I move into a new house is I get my photos out and I've got all your smiling faces looking at me. And I know that this is home." So I think, you know, from that perspective, and you know, all the stories that we're going to tell during our podcast, I think one huge thing that's going to run through all of our one theme is going to run through is family and values. Our family values are very, very deep, and they're very, very I think they're very, very prominent in what we do and in how we behave with our children, how we behave with the outside world, and how we interact. And I think having our strong family values is really important, and family being one of the most important values that we hold. And I think, you know, despite all the chaos and despite all the other stuff that's going on in life, if you have a very strong set of values, it's going to make life a lot easier. And for us, our families are chaotic as well, because, you know, our brothers and sisters have large families and our cousins have large families, and, you know, so chaos is also one of our values, really. You know, the chaos of life is how we work, and, you know, sometimes we need to just shut up from that. You know, sometimes we need to just walk away. And, you know, over the school holidays, it was fantastic because we didn't have rugby. We did, but we didn't have, you know, those incessant trainings and all that kind of stuff. And I really value that at time as a family, and doing nothing is important as well as the chaos.
I think it's such a great set of examples that you use there. I mean, I love the chaos. That, you know, I embrace it. So for me, I think it's incredible, and I know that you're lesser about that, but it's part of our life. We are, you know, we accepted that as having a big family, having a dog, all of these things that people who are crazy enough jump into and do. And it's lucky enough. Yeah, and that too, absolutely. But it's part of, you know, I think that's part of the fun. It's not structured, it's not organized. If you want to be like that, then it's going to be always tricky for you, isn't it? It's going to be always challenging because you're always on this fine line. Whereas if you recognize it and know it's going to happen and you're ready for it, it means when it does happen, and really it happens all the time, you really can start to live it and enjoy it and just embrace it and be part of it. So yeah,
definitely.
Well, this has been a very exciting little first point. I think, Kristy, one of the things that stood out to me as to why I was really interested in doing this is, I don't know how many times I've heard people say to you, you should write a book on the things that we're going to talk about. So for me, this is the more up-to-date way of probably sharing those for us to be able to discuss and challenge ourselves and share more with you. So we really look forward to continuing. We'll, over the next couple of weeks, we'll start to ask for a bit more important feedback of what you want to hear, and we'll keep talking about it. Yeah. All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.